stuff you like, you can call me Ursa, and if there were a phrase I had to live by when on the internet, it would be never... Actually, no, it would be kind, because kindness is my #1 favourite quality in the world. But if I had two phrases, then the second one would definitely be never ascribe to malice what can adequately be explained by stupidity, or adequately attributed to incompetence, or, you know, there are a couple of permutations. What does this have to do with Sherlock Series 3? Well, 2 things. And here be spoilers for both The Empty Hearse and The Sign of 3, so don't watch this until you've watched at least those 2. Okay, the first thing is that many of the actions taken by Sherlock, especially in The Empty Hearse, are just downright asshole-ish. The way he presents himself to John after a 2-year absence where everyone thought he was dead as a surprise. The way that he stayed away from John for 2 years in the first place. And that whole thing with the bomb in the tube car. Because it's not a carriage, it's a car. Total asshole behaviour, am I right? But at least 2 of those things can be explained, if not condoned, by the fact that Sherlock really doesn't understand other people very well. Never attribute to malice what can adequately be attributed to complete lack of understanding. On John's tie-in blog, he says this: "I was out having dinner with my girlfriend when he sauntered back into my world. He was dressed as a waiter because he thought it would be funny. He genuinely thought it would be funny to surprise me." I think he was more surprised when I nutted him. The second thing that my second favourite saying relates to is this. A lot of people didn't really like The Empty Hearse. I did, but a lot of people didn't. Just because they didn't particularly care for the episode, or because they felt it wasn't really very well put together, or because they felt that it was mocking them as fans of the show. Because they felt that the fangirl and /fic and no, I'm still not gay jokes were inappropriate or offensive or just plain not funny. And honestly, I'm really not the person to ask as to whether fangirl or /fic or no, I'm still not gay jokes are funny or offensive, though if you want my opinion, it's funny, occasionally funny, and just beaten to death, now can we stop, respectively. But I try not to attribute to malice what can adequately be explained by failure with good intentions. And that's what it feels like. The Sign of 3 is a love letter from Sherlock to John and to Mary. All of the actions he takes, the way he helps to organise the wedding, the best man speech, all of that is how he shows his affection for the 2 most important people in his life. And it's wonderful. It's really, really touching. I love The Sign of 3 and I do like it better than The Empty Hearse. But The Empty Hearse, I think, is an attempt at a love letter to the fandom. Occasionally, possibly, yes, a slightly tone-deaf one, but they're trying anyway. And what I think The Empty Hearse is trying to say to the fandom is, we see you. We see you in the Empty Hearse group. We see you and we acknowledge your interpretations. We see that you read Sherlock Molly or John Sherlock or Sherlock Moriarty into this show. And while we may not be doing that as a thing, we see your interpretation and we recognise it as valid. It's not death of the author because obviously we're still here and writing things for the show, but we're not going to dismiss your Sherlock Moriarty /fic as a completely invalid interpretation. We see your readings, and we value them, and we value you. So I thought The Empty Hearse, where Sherlock comes back and we solve some crimes and John nearly gets killed by sources unknown, was fun, really. But The Sign of 3, I thought, was beautiful. And the character development inherent in The Sign of 3 is probably my favourite thing about it. The other thing I love about Series 3 is the inclusion of more Molly Hooper, because Molly Hooper is awesome. And I'm especially pleased about this because, you know, I do tend to twit Stephen Moffat's one-dimensional female character writing, and Irene Adler is kind of a slightly more complex example of that. But Molly is not Mrs. Hudson, is not Sally, is not possibly Anthea, and none of them are like Mary. And Mary is wonderful. And Mary is just cool. Which is great. I mean, they could have gone the, oh, jealousy and love triangle-y route, and instead they've gone just wonderfully in the direction of three people who are very close, and it all kind of works. Love it so much. And the other thing I love about Sherlock Series 3 is the thing I've loved about Sherlock Series 1 and 2, that regardless of anything else and, you know, things that you may think of afterwards, for the most part during an episode I always get carried along by the fun and the jokes and the co-star chemistry, and in the case of the Empty Hearse, Benedict Cumberbatch kissing absolutely everyone. Though if he'd actually kissed Moriarty, that would have been better. You know, just for the sake of equality. So you will have your own opinions on the episodes, and you should definitely leave a comment and tell us what they are. But do try and be kind. After all, come Sunday, I think we're all going to need kindness and tea and biscuits and possibly shock blankets. So I'll see you next week and we can commiserate together.